everybody, I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome back. All right, so you probably remember last Monday I shared a fun little YouTube video here where I was machine quilting a t-shirt quilt. So if you didn't have a chance to check out that video, make sure you run back and check out that last video. It's a lot of fun. You know, I think sometimes we all have quilts that are a little bit more simplistic and that really do just need a little bit more simplistic type quilting. So like I shared in that video last week, just the simple stippling. Today, I'm also going to be doing some really simple machine quilting. So this fun quilt is going to be all about cross hatching, and I am going to be machine quilting using my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. And you will see I do have our Piece and Quilt pop socket ruler grip here on the top of the ruler. So as I'm quilting these straight lines across this quilt, that just gives me a little handle to hold on to as I'm quilting. You know I love ruler work. Cross hatching, like I'm going to share today, is a really great place to start when doing ruler work. It's pretty forgiving. You can work with what your blocks give you, and it creates an awesome result when you're all done. So I hope you'll all find a bit of inspiration from this adorable quilt. Let's hop over to my Gamble 22-inch machine and let's get stitching. Let's start out with a couple photos of this adorable quilt. So this quilt's so much fun. It's a 9-patch quilt. It's actually one that my grandma made, and I was able to custom machine quilt this for her using, like I mentioned, my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler, and I'm going to machine quilt a cross hatching design. So what's really awesome about a quilt like this and cross hatching is I'm going to follow the lines on the 9-patch. And it's also kind of broken down into sections that you can see there's rows of the 9-patch blocks. So I don't need to do any marking, and I can quilt pretty much every pass on this quilt without stopping and starting or cutting my thread. So in today's video, I will be sharing my process of doing that. And here is an image of the quilt after my machine quilting is all complete. So you can see how I create that beautiful cross hatching by following the lines that the quilt gives me. In today's video, I am going to be using So Fine color number 402. The batting that I'm going to be using is 1 layer of the Quilter's Dream wool batting. I wanted this quilt to have a lot of loft, so that wool batting gives me just enough. Now it's time to start quilting this quilt. So I do all of my quilting on a Gamble 22-inch machine. I like to quilt my quilts from top to bottom, left to right. That's just the way I personally found the most success. So I know the video you're viewing here is kind of a far away angle. What I want you to see though is how I'm quilting these diagonal lines, kind of a zigzag really, across my quilt, starting on the left-hand side. So yes, it starts out a little far away, but it'll get a bit closer as I work over here to the right side of the quilt. What I'm doing is starting on the left side of the quilt, and really you can start at any point. I choose to start at one of the points on a 9-patch block. Then from there, I'm essentially just quilting point to point straight lines. I use the side of my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler to help me guide my ruler right along those points and stitch as straight as I can. Now when I say it's really forgiving, if piecing is not perfect, as you're stitching, adjust your ruler and make the stitching lines go point to point. That will give your quilt more of that custom look. Then when you take the quilt off the machine and it relaxes just a little bit, those lines are going to look fabulous. So I'm always, when I quilt cross-hatching designs like this, trying to follow the piecing rather than making sure my lines are absolutely perfect. Now through the solid blocks, I'm continuing stitching those long diagonal lines, the same lines that I would quilt right through each of the 9-patch blocks, but just continuing that big zigzag shape all the way across from left to right. I work as far as my throat space will allow. So like you can see here, I can fit about 2 rows of the 9-patch blocks across. So I'll quilt across those from left to right, and then I'm going to work my way right back from right to left. So once I've stitched that first zigzag line all the way across my quilt over to the right side, then I'll just continue stitching right from that point where I met the right side of the quilt. So it was at that point, the bottom of that first 9-patch block. Then I'll just adjust and start stitching. So I'm crossing over that first set of zigzag lines, and I'm going to just keep repeating this exact same process. Now, once I stitch back over all the way over to the left-hand side of the quilt, I'm going to end up in the same place where I began. So I will travel down the ditch, or in this case, there isn't a ditch, it's actually the outside of the quilt. I'll travel down that to the next block. So if I start on the first blue block on my 9-patch, I'll move down to the white block, and I'll repeat this exact same process. Now this does take quite a bit of time to quilt one pass on this quilt. It did take me about 40 minutes. So we're going to speed this video up quite a bit here so that you can see more of the process and you don't have to sit here for 40 minutes. hope you all found a bit of inspiration from this awesome quilt. I sure had a lot of fun custom machine quilting this awesome crosshatch design. You can see here how I've worked in sections, quilting just a few rows at a time, quilting these perfectly imperfect straight lines.